In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
First day back after a long weekend. Maybe you're feeling like you're dragging a bit. Did you get a good night's sleep? Apparently the key to getting a good night's sleep is thinking you did.
Yeah, this is kind of a crazy study that they just did. And they found that when it comes to your mood, just thinking you got a good night's sleep might actually matter more than actually getting a good night's sleep. So researchers used Fitbit-style monitors, which can track your sleep patterns. Then they compared the data to the notes that the people would take about how restful their sleep was after they woke up and how it would impact their mood the next day. Turns out that if you just thought you got a good night's sleep, they were more likely to be in a good mood. And if they thought they didn't sleep well, they were more likely to be in a bad mood that day, even though maybe the data showed that they did have a good night's sleep. They just didn't feel like it.
Mind over matter, I guess, in a way.
So it would be hard to trick yourself into being like, no, you actually did get a good night's sleep. But they said if you do have a Fitbit or some other kind of tracker, because I've had that before where I'm like, oh, I did not sleep well at all. But then I look at my Fitbit app at my sleep data and it's like, oh, actually it says I got, about the same I did the night before.
But if you're waking up tired today because you did a lot of stuff over the long weekend, I don't know that there's much short of coffee and, Red Bull and that kind of stuff that can keep you going in the morning. So just telling yourself, I guess it's that positive affirmation thing, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're supposed to look in the mirror and I'm good enough and I'm smart enough and doggone it, I'm not tired today. A job listing for a pizza influencer is going viral and the salary is $110,000 a year.
OMG, talk about a dream job. It's for a pizza delivery app called Slice. It's basically a social media marketing role, and they've just kind of put a fun title on it. So the job description says you'll create videos and social media content, primarily for TikTok and Instagram, that, quote, celebrates pizza, pizzeria owners, and pizza eaters.
So the job duties include recording, editing, and starring in at least 3 pizza-themed videos a week. You'll also be interviewing pizza shop owners, running contests and giveaways. Perks would include medical and dental, which is very cool, a matching 401k since this is a U.S. job, and, quote, weekly pizza stipend. So, in other words, free pizza.
Yeah. Well, you have to go and get this pizza as a part of your job. So why not? You can apply through their website or LinkedIn. Not sure if this is open to Canadians, but they say the ideal candidate is someone in New York City or at least someone who's willing to move there. But they're also open to other major metropolitan areas.
So someone in LA, somebody in Dallas, maybe one of those other big
Chicago
cities, right?
I'm thinking of what are some towns that have like a big pizza culture. I'm thinking New York City or Chicago.
Detroit has some great pizza too. So, the opportunities are there for someone that's really is good with social media and loves pizza.
Well, and I would also be like, can you pay for my flights? I need to go to Chicago and try their pizza too. Oh, no.
I would bet that would be a part of it over time. It would evolve to that, right? There's so many pizzerias in New York City. If you're based there, eventually, I feel like they'd be flying you all over the place. Sounds like a dream job. Well, we were telling you earlier about a sprinter at some games that were held in China. They were the university games. She got in there when she really shouldn't have because she's just a regular person. It was her aunt, apparently, that kind of got her in.
Although that did fulfill my wish of having just a regular person who thinks they could compete. Be like, okay, well, you go do the triple jump then against these elite athletes that have been training their entire lives and see how well you do. Because I feel like that would really show just how elite they are.
Right. And then over the years, there have been instances where people have been caught using banned substances and, they've been stripped of medals and things like that. But now on the flip side of that, an Australian businessman by the name of Aaron is developing the, quote, enhanced games where there's no drug testing. In fact, doping is encouraged.
Apparently, they're hoping to obliterate all of the world records by, quote, unlocking human potential. And it sounds like nothing is off limits. Now, you don't have to be juicing. Aaron says they also want natural and enhanced athletes to show up because they want those natural athletes who might be bold enough to say, well, I can still beat them even though they are taking all these steroids. He thinks that would be great TV.
So the enhanced games will supposedly launch with a showcase event next December, with the full games debuting in 2025. No host city has been named yet. Unlike the Olympics, they hope to make this an annual event. There's going to be 5 categories: track and field, swimming, weightlifting, gymnastics, and some combat sports.
But there is a difference between this and the Olympics. Another difference, the athletes will actually be paid. No specific numbers have been released just yet, but apparently there will be salaries and large cash prizes if you do break a world record. Because he said, we're going to give some elite athletes a choice between a life of poverty and obscurity by competing in the Olympics or, the financial well-being and the right to build their brand at the Enhanced Games.
He says that their athletes will be offered cardiac screenings at no cost before the games to make sure they're not in any serious dangers, because how many athletes have had issues because of taking drugs? I remember when my son played football in grade 9 when we lived in London, they actually brought in a former Canadian weightlifting bodybuilding champion to talk to them about how at that time when he was doing it was when a bunch of baseball players were taking steroids. So he and his wife were both competitors, and they both started taking steroids. She ended up getting cancer and dying. He was, I think, one of the stages, stage 3 cancer he had. Talked about some of the other things it did to him physically, just to try and get it into their heads about what these drugs can do to you, right?
Yeah, that the short-term game isn't worth the long-term consequences.
But this whole story kind of was a light bulb thing for us, because we were both looking at each other when we first read it going, I think we've heard this before on Saturday Night Live.
Trainer has told me that he's taken anabolic steroids, Novocaine, NyQuil, Darvon, and some sort of fish paralyzer. Also, I believe he's had several cocktails within the last hour or so. Aquanov is getting set now. He's going for a clean and jerk of over 1,500 pounds, which would triple the existing world record. Oh, he's pulled his arms off. He's pulled his arms off. That's got to be disappointing to the big Russian. You hate to see something like this happen, Dennis. He probably doesn't have that much pain right now, but I think tomorrow he's really going to feel that, Dennis.
Just be careful when you're crawling through those watermelons that they don't explode.
Apparently, the heat is turning some watermelons in parts of the U.S. into deadly ticking time bombs.
Sort of.
Kind of. So the heat can cause the fruit inside of the watermelon to ferment. And if that happens, you'll see a frothy foam bubbling out of the watermelon. And you might be thinking, oh, hey, it's fermenting. Means we could having fun like a little alcoholic watermelon. But it's not a good thing. They say a fermenting watermelon is the perfect environment for toxic pathogens, including botulism, E. coli, and salmonella. And if enough gas is produced, it can actually cause the watermelon to explode.
It's complicated, but basically it's a combination of bacteria, of the fruit's natural sugars, and then how hot it's been in some areas, both where they grow and they tend to be stored too. So that causes extra issues.
Yeah, so if they're not in if they're being transported in a regular pickup truck and not in like an insulated or cooled one, right? Like the temperatures in those trucks can get pretty hot. So in order to avoid the risk of fermentation, they say you should keep your watermelon in the fridge once you bring it home. And if you see your watermelon foaming, chuck it out. Get rid of it.
I'd like to know who has enough room in their fridge to store a full watermelon. Unless you're cutting that up into really tiny pieces.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's probably the best option is cut it up right away.
Yeah, do that and maybe stay on the safe side. No one wants an exploding watermelon.
Now is the time.
And now it's time for...
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
This is the definition of Are You Kidding Me? A woman was flying out of Pittsburgh last Friday morning, heading off to vacation to some resort, and she had her 7-year-old French bulldog with her. She tried to claim the dog was an emotional support animal, but it wasn't, so they told her she'd have to put the dog in a crate.
But apparently she had done no research at all. She was just pushing the dog around like in a little dog stroller. So instead of dealing with it, going and getting the crate like they told her, she instead just abandoned the dog in the airport parking lot, boarded her flight, and left.
Abandoned the dog and just left it behind. An airport worker found the dog sitting in the stroller near short-term parking at 5:30 in the morning. She did leave some food and water, but the worker said the dog looked very sad. In the photo you see, he's kind of curled into that stroller, looking around like, I don't know what's going on right now and I don't know where my family is.
Well, thankfully, the dog is okay. I don't think he was alone for too long, but police took the dog in, got it to a local animal shelter. Now, they did scan it, found a microchip, but they weren't able to get in touch with the owner.
Yeah, because she's at a resort somewhere having Mai Tais and cocktails.
Now, police say she will likely face animal abandonment charges whenever she does get back, and a fine of up to $1,000. But the story does have a happy ending, because clearly this woman did not care about this dog. But there's a number of people out there in the world that want to make sure this dog has a much better life. The shelter that is taking care of the dog says that they have gotten tons of calls from people who want to adopt him.
And sounds like she'll end up losing custody of the dog.
We were able to determine that the dog's owner had attempted to fly with the dog this morning and was denied boarding due to having an improper cargo container. In turn, the dog was abandoned and its dog's owner continued to its resort destination as intended. The owner also attempted to fly with the animal under the pretenses of being an emotional support dog, but was denied boarding for that as well.
Yeah, you have to have paperwork for that kind of thing, right? You can't just show up like the woman did with a peacock one time in the airport, and they were like, no, that's not happening. How? I couldn't even possibly imagine just, tying our dog to a post outside the airport and going, well, see you later. Going down to Dominican or Cuba.
Like, I'm not going to lose my money on this trip. I'm not going to call a friend to come pick you up, or
even if
delay your flight, go figure out get the dog sorted at a kennel and then leave.
Okay, let's play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Even if she had called a friend and the friend agreed to pick the dog up but got stuck in traffic or their car died, how do you walk away from your animal in the parking lot and just leave them there?
Well, clearly she didn't love the dog, or I don't know.
Didn't love it enough.
As a psychopath. That might be the only explanation. You're a psychopath.
That is just disgusting behavior. Thursday today, heading off towards the weekend. You may be thinking, I got to mow the lawn. And I was just thinking, I got to mow the back lawn again.
I mowed the lawn on Monday, Sunday? So, I don't know. Days ago, and already it looks like it needs to be cut again.
Oh, yeah. I had to do the front yesterday. Same thing. It just popped again. Well, if you want to take some time with it, if you've got some time this weekend, you want to kind of put those lines in your lawn like they do, like on ball fields and, things like that. Popular Mechanics just posted some tips on how to get it done.
So those stripes happen when you go back and forth in the opposite direction and the grass is laying in a different direction. So you're already doing that part right, but there's 4 other things that also play a factor. So if you want to go full dad mode, you might need to completely change the type of grass that you have in your yard, because lawns are mostly one single type, tend to be neater looking with the stripes. But most bags of grass seed that you buy at your home and garden centers, those have multiple types of grass in it.
Now you can do it in the grass you have. Some of it is the height you cut it. That plays a big role too. So you won't have stripes if you cut your grass really short. So that's something to keep in mind.
So you don't want it like looking like a green at a golf course.
Yeah, you're not going to get a buzz cut. Yeah.
Also, you need to make sure that your mower has one of those flaps in the back. It's sort of the lawnmower equivalent of a mud flap. Most push mowers have them to prevent rocks from kicking up and hitting your legs, but you get better stripes if there's also a weighted bar at the bottom of that, and you can actually buy specific products, attachments. I mean, you can buy everything online these days, and it'll attach to the back of your lawnmower and weight it down and sort of help sweep all the blades of grass into the same direction.
All right, so once you've done all those things, make sure your technique is on point. Don't just start at one side of your lawn and do a rectangle. Stripes, they say, tend to look best when they're cut at an angle to the road or sidewalk. But that means not every stripe is the same length. So start with the longest pass you need to make, usually the strip near the middle, and then go from there and kind of have reference points where you can go from post to post. Seems like a lot to think about when I'm just thinking, I just want to mow the lawn.
I just want it done.
And I don't want to step in any dog poop while I'm doing it. Several issues of law and disorder for you this morning. Several stories, including authorities in South Carolina. They're warning people that they're seeing a rise in scammers putting fake QR codes at parking lots, which will then send the payments to their bank accounts.
You see one more QR code, you assume somebody associated with the parking lot did it. You instinctively just sort of trust it, and if you want to just do it and kind of pay as you're walking to wherever it is you go, I can see this being something people fall for pretty easily. We're so used to the self-service, like you go into a restaurant, scan this for your menu, scan the QR code to get to the site and all that. We're trying to reduce printing stuff out, so it makes a lot of sense.
Well, especially since a lot of these parking lots in bigger cities, they don't have attendants at them anymore to pay. So, You just assume that this is the way I pay. And next thing you know, you get back and your car's been towed because you didn't pay the right person.
And it went to someone else's bank account. One more thing we have to be worried about.
We've got a stupid criminal story for you down in Florida, of course. A man was arrested there after he led the police on a high-speed chase while he was driving a Google Street View car. You know, those vehicles that you've seen mounted with a bunch of 360-degree cameras on top? Now, apparently the driver wasn't running from a police initially. A cop just saw the car flying down the highway over 100 miles per hour.
Well, you're not going to get very good video doing that.
No, I feel like it's going to be really grainy. The cop immediately turned the lights on, started pursuing the man, but the Google driver refused to stop. So the chase continued for several miles before the driver eventually lost control, drove through a yard and into a creek where it got stuck. When they asked the driver, what were you thinking? He said, well, he was just too scared to stop.
Sounds like there's more to that story than they've
Definitely.
released yet. And a man in Phoenix was arrested after he got stuck in someone's chimney while apparently trying to break into their home.
It's Christmas in July.
You are not Santa. This may have seemed like a clever move, but it's been, over 110 degrees there for weeks on end. So no one's using their fireplaces, but that's where his great idea ended. The homeowners heard the guy in the chimney, ended up calling 911.
Crews were able to monitor him, monitor the atmosphere around him at all times. They were able to have contact with him at all times, speak to the gentleman, and provide water for him.
Yeah, it was quite, I imagine, an ordeal for him and to get him out at the same time, too. So he's now going to be facing some charges. Do you like avocados?
I do like avocados and guacamole.
Yeah,
they're delicious.
They're okay. It's not like I look at an avocado and go, oh, I want some of that. You know what it is? It's the texture, and it makes me think of eating margarine. That's how I feel like.
When have you ate straight margarine?
Point being, that's what it feels like it would taste like to me. And not butter, like the old school margarine just right in the tub. Well, there's a new variety of avocado on the way called Luna. And there are several major improvements, they say, over what is now the most prevalent brand, which is called Haas.
So for starters, the skin of the Luna avocados actually changes color when it's ripe. So no more guessing, is this ripe or not, for the next 5 minutes. So it changes from a bright emerald green to a dark black. So no longer having to guess when they're ready. And it also has a smoother texture, which can be ideal for guacamole.
And here's what one of the researchers said are some of the other benefits.
It's like, if you think about, you go to the store now and you see this collection of different apple varieties, but they all taste like apples, but they're all subtly different. And the Luna UCR is an avocado. It eats like an avocado, but it has a different eating experience than the Hass. It's smoother textured, but it's a very nice eating quality fruit.
And then, of course, we have to talk about the ripeness because of the Haas. Of course, like that. Is it ready? Is it ready? No, it's not ready. Throw it out. It's gone now.
It's ready. Is it ready? No. Yes, no. Passed. Too late. So don't get too excited yet, though, if you're an avocado lover. They say the Luna variety has been the result of decades of breeding. It's not a quick process because, avocado trees take a while to grow. So they say it's going to be a few more years before it finally starts to show up in stores.
Monday is the 20th anniversary of a pretty big Where Were You moment for a lot of us here in Ontario and also into the U.S. It was 20 years ago on Monday that more than 50 million people in Ontario and the northeastern U.S. experienced the largest power outage in the history of North America.
Yeah, that big blackout that affected us here in Chatham-Kent. I remember I was in high school when that happened. Back in what? So that would have been 2003.
August 14th, 2003. Where were you? You can text us 519-351-6300. Where were you when the lights went out? We were actually driving down. We were living in London at the time, but we went up to visit family in Northern Ontario. And Monday happens to be our anniversary. So it'll be 25 years, by the way, this year. My wife and I are celebrating.
Happy anniversary.
So thank you. It was our 5th anniversary that year. We were in Northern Ontario driving from Timmins down to Espanola, where my mother-in-law was living at the time. And if you've ever driven that road, you're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can't really get any radio signals, anything like that out there down Highway 144. So I think we were listening to probably CDs or something at that point in time, 20 years ago.
Yep.
We had no idea. So we got into the first little town just outside of Sudbury. I want to say it's Cartier, Chelmsford, and there were some traffic lights out. They had like 2. And so we were just like, all right, well, whatever. And we just proceeded, as you do. We get in, and I remember my mother-in-law going, oh, the power's been out for hours. I'm like, what? Ended up going to a corner store that thankfully we had some cash because my mother-in-law didn't want to open the fridge, which, understandable. You don't know how long it's going to be out.
Yeah, and it's been out for a while.
So we were able to get bread, bologna, and some condiments, and a bottle of water. And that was our anniversary dinner. So a memorable one, right?
Happy anniversary.
One of those things that sticks in your head, and you were working at a local market.
Yeah, so 2003, that would have been the summer I had graduated high school and was going off to university in the fall. And I was working at Deb and Alley's, the fruit stand that used to be right in front of Pizzazz. That was my summer job all through high school. And I was working that day, and I noticed the traffic lights right at the corner were out. So, traffic was backing up. And so then I decided, I think I turned on the radio and started listening to CFCO because we had a little radio in there. And I was like, yeah, there's a blackout. Well, then we got super busy because with all the grocery stores closed because the power was out. People were coming to the fruit stand and buying like fruits and vegetables in case the power didn't come back on. So they had something for dinner, something to eat. And people were asking me, can I grill corn? Can I put that on the barbecue? Meanwhile, I'm 18. I think I just turned 19. And I was like, I don't know, probably.
Give it a go. Be safe.
Yeah. And then I remember getting home and the power was out at home. And, I'd been outside, you're there all day. I'm just covered in like a layer of film of grime. And I just wanted to take a shower. And I couldn't because there was no power. We live with well water. So I had to kind of rinse off with a hose instead outside. It sucked.
I was talking to Matt from our newsroom about it too, and he said he was at the beach in Grand Bend with his family camping at the Pinery when the outage hit. He said, we tried to go out for pizza, but everything had just closed down. So yeah, they had no power. So unless you had cash, you weren't getting anything. 20 years ago on Monday, I mean, there were spontaneous street parties. People actually started meeting their neighbors. People started cooking everything in their freezer.
Yeah, because in some places, as it went on, like I know you said in London, because you guys live near the hospital there.
It came on fairly quickly, the grid that we were on. So I think they were able to get that one up and working.
I mean, we didn't live anywhere near the hospital. Like I was at home with my parents on the farm. But our power came on overnight. So then I was able to get up in the morning and take a shower finally.
Where were you when the power went out 20 years ago? That's anniversary on Monday. You can text us at 519-351-6300.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.